Yes, it is.
All right, everyone. Good evening. Hugs and stitches to you all. I so apologize. We've been on the line for 30 minutes making sure everything worked just fine. Inevitably, when it starts, it booted me off. I do apologize. Look, folks, we're going to talk about getting creative with your software tonight, and I'm going to start off pretty rudimentary. I want to talk about the stitch types and the different effects that one can achieve with the different stitch types. So number one, we're going to start with a running stitch, and I'm just going to make a very simple running stitch. I'm sure many of you already know this, but I want to show you the different effects that you can utilize with the run stitch, because certainly it's more than just a run. Over here in the properties box, certainly we have the ability to lay a standard, a single run stitch, a two-ply run stitch, a bean stitch. A bean stitch is a 3-time run stitch with a forward movement, also utilized in red work. But you can also utilize the motifs and apply them to your run stitch. Click on your motifs, down click on the arrow. You have all these motifs. Simply select any motif, hit apply. Whoops, excuse me, you've got to select the item, pick your motif, and simply apply it to the running stitch line. And you can apply motifs to the running stitch line. And I'm not sure if all of you know, but you can also apply your symbols. The software comes filled with an enormous amount of symbols. Now, here in the drop-down box, you see all of the symbols in just the name. But you can also access your symbols and what the symbols look like right here in this icon up on the top, just by clicking on select. These are all of those symbols that you see named there. Some of you don't know that, so I just thought I'd give you a look at the symbols. So again, I've chosen anchor, I've selected it, I've come in and I've chosen symbol, we've got an anchor, click apply, and there's your anchor. I think it's pretty neat that you can apply all those functions to a run stitch. Where do I utilize that? Look, sometimes I'll do text names, and then I'll border around the text names with a series of symbols or even a series of the motifs, doing squares. You know, one thing I will tell you about the run stitch line also, when you create just a run, and I'm just going to go back to a standard run stitch again, I apologize, but I'm going to make a run. Now, notice that, let's say I want an absolute straight line with that run stitch. Now, if you have the grid up, it makes it a little easier, but you know what, folks? Holding down the shift key will give you an exact straight line. You don't even have to be 0 degrees, exactly 90. You'll see that I'm just pulling the cursor down here. I'm holding down the shift key, just left click, and you get a perfect 90 degree, a straight line right down there. Want to go 0 degrees? I don't even have to be articulate or accurate. Hold down the shift key, boom, you got a perfect 0 degree line. I think that's pretty darn neat. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the satin stitch and the choices that you have with a satin stitch. I am going to utilize my grid right now and zoom in just a little bit just so I can get an accurate size to my satin stitch. I'm going to go ahead and use just a classic satin right now. I'm going to go ahead and make about a 6mm wide satin stitch, and I just want to show you a couple of the choices that you have. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the grid now. Now, the first thing that you can do with a satin stitch, and I think this can be pretty handy, certainly it's going to look more realistic when you get it into a one-on-one basis, but I'm going to zoom in. And the first feature that you have, by selecting the satin stitch and then coming under the tab column, the first one that I'm going to talk about is a split satin. Split satins can create some really unique effects. When I've done flags in the past and such, I will throw an elongated satin stitch, and then I will split the satin. Let me show you how you do that. I'm going to come in and I'm going to say I want it to split by a percentage. You can absolutely, or you can do an absolute split also. And I'm going to say 50%, meaning the split is going to happen right in the middle. Click apply. When you look at it now, let me go ahead and do it on a one-to-one basis. You know what? Let's do this. I'm going to make a larger satin stitch. I so apologize. Okay, select it, column, split it 50%, an absolute value of 50%. I'll make it look 3D. And you'll see the satin made it too wide. It actually splits right down the center. There we go. Now, that can be really handy for creating a beautiful effect, like in flags, the lines on a flag, whereby you can do one elongated satin stitch, and it will actually drop the stitch along that seam line, and it creates like differing lines, meaning it makes it look like you've done a series of satin stitch with the same needle penetration point. It's a very unique form, and again, I've utilized it in flags. I've utilized it in very large lettering also. You can also, when you're doing it with percentages, create kind of a scatter effect. The other thing that I'd like to show you with a satin stitch, and this, while not being really a special effect per se, is something that I utilize whenever I'm stitching on leather or any type of leather style product, naugahyde. Let me explain. The first time we normally stitch on leather, I always tell people they get their first leather medallion. Stitches cut leather. Leather is a hide. Naugahyde, while being pressed, and fake leathers and such are pressed products, but they're not a woven product. Hence, the stitches will cut them, especially perfect stitches. And if one looks along the line of this satin stitch, you see that every stitch falls exactly above and below the other stitch. On leather type materials, that forms a cut line. So I guess we would consider it a special effect. Go ahead and select it. Once again, go into your column. Up at the top, you're going to see jagged type. Whenever you're stitching on that type of fabric, any type of fabric that is pressed and not woven, I want you to select both sides, and I want you to do an offset of 1 to 2/10 of a millimeter, and then click apply. You know what? It looks rather dramatic here, but realize I'm zoomed in over 1,000 times. On a one-to-one basis, you're not even going to notice that. As you look down now along the edge of this satin stitch, no two stitches fall in the same relative position as the one above it or below it. This is the absolute trick for stitching on those type materials. It's impossible to form a cut line. That is a very, very, very handy little tip. I hope you all enjoy that. Let's talk about your fill stitching. I'm going to go ahead and just make a basic fill stitch here. First of all, with your fill stitch, and certainly in fill stitch, you have your standard effect, but many of you don't realize that under the standard effect, first of all, tatami. Tatami is the default. Tatami is the Japanese vernacular for fill stitch. You're going to get a rather flat type fill. It's the one I traditionally use. But you also can create a brick effect. You have a cornrow type effect. You then get several different patterns. You get a random effect. What I do with the random effect is a lot of times I'll select the random effect. I'll elongate my stitch length to 5 millimeters, click apply. In a 3D mode now, that's how we create a hair effect. Let me come in, you know what, and just change that color to a brown. Sometimes having the right color. That's how we create hair with a fill, by elongating the stitch length and then utilizing a random fill stitch under your standard application. You create the effect of hair. You also can get a very smooth effect in the satin, or a satin gives a rather smooth effect, makes it look like a satin stitch more so. You do have a smooth. Tatami is traditional, and zigzag truly just looks like a bunch of zigzags throughout the fill stitch. What I really suggest, make a series of 2-inch boxes and run little boxes or little circles, whatever the case may be, in fill stitch, and look at the different effects, because they can be very, very utilizable in creating special effects. Now, certainly with your fill stitch, once it's selected, you also have the ability to do embossing. Look, there are 200 different embossing patterns within the system itself. Take an embossing pattern, click apply. It applies to the design. In the 3D mode, you'll now see that effect in embossing. Don't let these open areas bother you. That's just again a case because I'm zoomed in at such an enormous amount, 200% in this case. So you have full embossing ability within your fill stitch. Another special effect is that you can always utilize your motifs. And you do have a rather large selection of motifs. There are 40 different motifs. Select any motif, click apply, and you can now fill that area with motifs. I don't know if a lot of you know this, but you can also auto border. It's not really a special effect, but it is kind of a neat little thing to do with the fill for auto bordering. A lot of times I'll do a motif, simply select it, right-click, and click on Create a Border. The border will come up as a run stitch, but you know what? Select the run, right-click, and just say Convert to, in this case, I'll do it a steel stitch, and it'll give me a 3mm stitch. I can also right-click and change the color. I get perfect bordering with a nice amount of overlap. Basically, it's 50% in, 50% out. The software does have auto bordering. Not all of you know that. I thought I'd just go ahead and throw that in also. You also have, with the fill stitch with special effects, contour stitching. Contour stitching is an effect of scrolling out from the center. Click Apply, and it will contour stitch. Now, the density is set to 1. You can change that by coming in and setting the density, in this case to a 0.5, tightening up the effect, and really create some really neat effects. I've actually used the contour stitching when I've done wave type designs, or you know what, like a whirlpool type design. It can really enhance a design's look, especially in certain colors. Looks great in metallic too. The contour stitch stitches out really, really neat in metallic thread. And then, of course, the final special effect that you have with your fill stitch, and one of our last updates, is stippling. Click on your stipple, click Apply, your stipple stitching. Once again, you can very dramatically change the effect simply by changing the density. The default is 3. Change it to 1, click Apply, and you'll get much more of a tight stipple. Those are the special effects, certainly, that you have within the system in your fill stitching. Let's go ahead and talk about cross stitching. You do have your cross stitch icon right here. You input your cross stitch just like a fill stitch. So input your cross stitch. There's your cross stitch. Oops, I left the material turned on. I'm actually showing you something I didn't want to show you quite yet, but that's okay. I'll come back to that a little later. A couple of things. First of all, when we select this, you do have control of the size of the cross stitch, the amount of overlaps, and the number of repeats. 1 is going to do it 1 time. 2 is certainly going to do it with a double run stitch. The effect changes. You can create some really neat effects going to 2 and taking it up a little larger in size. The overlap is the overlap taking it into the outer border. Now, let me explain something also. If you ever do a shape with a cross stitch and it doesn't quite fill it, it seems to maybe overfill it or underfill it, realize that you have your shaping and movement right there. A lot of times that helps fill an area with a cross stitch. I'm trying to think if I have something. You know what? Let me go ahead and do this because it's kind of nice to see with the design. Let's just go ahead and I'll just grab this fill curve box. I'm going to go ahead and grab the curve or the stitch, grab that. And you see how right up on the top it didn't quite fill it? That's exactly what I wanted to happen. I can simply do a select now and come to my sizing. Just bring it down slightly below the line, and you'll get it to absolutely fit within there. Let me take it up just a little higher, and we'll get it to absolutely fit. So just a little bit of practice, and it'll work. And you can fit that area just perfectly. So that's kind of a special effect. Certainly it's a special effect within the system. Go ahead and apply and get that out of there. Cross stitch is something we don't always utilize, but I like cross stitch, and I think cross stitch isn't utilized enough within the system. Okay, let's talk about your applique and your applique icon. Right over here next to your fill stitch is your applique icon. The only thing you need to know initially about your applique icon is once you select it, and certainly you can do this also with the magic wand, with a fill stitch, there's no need to click that final path from this point over to this point. With your applique, it's very, very important that you get right back on that point, click on it, and then left click, and you have your applique. Now, the controls in your applique. You have your placement line, you have your tack down line. Certainly we can adjust, we can add holes and such to our applique. You've got your applique width, the stitch length for the stitch down below. Now though, choices. It always defaults to a base satin stitch, but with all appliques, You also have the ability to change and utilize an E or a blanket stitch. Just choose your E stitch, turn it into 3D, and you've got your E stitch. When you see a little bit where this is not connecting there, I'm just going to shape it, size it a little bit, and that'll normally auto-correct that. You also have the ability to border your appliques with any of the motifs. Now, one of the things when you're doing it with motifs, though, is sizing on the motifs. I found normally if I take the motifs down a little bit in size, I normally get a prettier border when I'm utilizing motifs with my appliques. And then many of you might be unaware, but you also have the ability to use your symbols. Once again, if I want to come in here and let's say I want to put balloons in there, I can apply balloons to that. Once again, I would probably size those down, create kind of a neat effect, and there's your balloons. Now, something else that you have with the appliques, most of you probably know this. If you don't, though, you have a whole series of pre-done applique shapes, okay? I utilize this one in Homo Demo because I think it looks kind of neat. But if I want to make that banana an applique, double-click on it, there's your applique. Now, you know what? First of all, when you first look at an applique also, and if I do it in a slow redraw, you'll see that the first thing that you're going to get is your placement line, then your tack down line, then your top stitch. It all shows as one color. But you know what, folks? When you save the design to your stitch file, it actually is going to run as basically a two-color design. It's going to do the placement line, then you'll see a stop. In fact, if I turn on the commands, there's your stop. It's going to do a tack down. It's going to show as a three-color design. Your tack down line, and then you're going to see the top stitch to the applique. It does show as one. Now, let me see if this was added on to it. I know we were talking about it. Yes, you can actually break up the path, and it should now show. Let's see if it'll show as that three-color design. No, it's still showing as one. You do have to save it. Don't worry about it. It's going to work just perfectly. But once again, you always have the ability in your applique, satin stitch, E or a blanket stitch, bordering with your motifs. And then this is one of the great ones that I like to do with the symbols. I'm sorry I didn't pick the motif. Let me get up my applique, pick my motifs. Apply the motifs to your applique border. They will auto-size and auto-fit. And then I do love the symbols in this case because I can get crazy and I can say, let's border that banana with bananas. I don't know why that tickles me. It just does. I'll go ahead and change the background color on the screen so that you can see it. And you got beautiful little bananas there bordering your applique. I think that is really, really neat. Now, I want to talk to you about something really very, very special. Most of you, and if not, you need to go download your newest update to the software. The newest update to Floriani Embroidery Suite is a function and a brand new icon called Applique Stitch. Folks, let me explain what Applique Stitch is. First of all, Applique Stitch is one of the newest and a very exclusive product lines offered by R&K Distributing. Appliques are now easier than ever, folks, and it's been completely automated within the software. Look, you can select the Applique Stitch tool. I'm going to go ahead and make one, then I'll explain the process to you. Select your Applique Stitch tool. Create any shape that you want to create with an applique. You don't even have to finish the shape, and then just right-click, and boom, you've Applique Stitch. Now, let me explain what Applique Stitch is, and then I'm going to show you something neat because you do have the applique materials in it. Applique Stitch is a very unique material. Now, imagine you have this applique shape, but you have a big square of material, certainly larger than the applique. Basically, what you do is you lay down the square of material, and it'll cover a big part of the frame. You run your Applique Stitch design, okay? The first thing when it runs in the slow redraw is you're going to get basically a placement line and a tack down line. Those are just to tack it down. They're really not even that necessary because the real trick is happening now. This is a little internal stitch that actually tacks down the applique, because what Applique Stitch does is after it does the top stitch, the border stitch, You remove the design, you remove the garment from the frame, from your hoop. You grab the Applique stitch material, and folks, you tear it like a piece of tearaway. It tears off so amazingly clean. There is no fraying. There is no debris left. It is absolutely goof-proof applique making, and I'm very, very proud that it's now been fully automated in the software. Now, the Applique stitch materials, by selecting and going under commands, and I should have stated this with Applique, you do have the ability to add fabrics or to show fabrics. 1 through 9 were fabrics that were already implanted in the software. But down below that then, you're going to get the Applique stitch materials that we currently are stocking and getting ready to hit the stores as I speak. You've got blue glitter. Click on it, click apply, and up it'll come. We actually shot these from the actual materials and implanted them in the software. You have black leather. You have brown leather. Click apply. You've got dark blue velvet. You can see you've got gold glitter, gold velvet, green velvet, light blue velvet, pink, red, royal blue velvet, silver glitter. I'll go ahead and put up the silver glitter. Silver velvet, tan leather, and yellow velvet. Folks, get a pack. Go to the store, grab some, create any shape that you want. And you know what? I'll even show you something really neat you can do with Applique stitch. I'm going to go ahead and start a new screen, and I'm going to do a true type text. This really excites me. I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to do a cap letter F for Floriani. Second, I don't have my glasses on. I can't see if I did a cap letter. And I'm going to choose Arial Black, and I'm going to tell it to be bold, and I'm going to click OK. And then OK one more time. The secret is in size. Basically, what you want for the Applique stitch is a minimum about a 3-inch letter. So let me go ahead and change over to inches. And then I'm simply going to go into transform. And I'm going to say that I want this 3 inches tall, click apply. I've now got a 3-inch design. Let's go ahead and just fit the screen with it. At this point in time, it's already selected. Just right click, convert to Applique stitch. And the process is done. It's truly amazing. It truly is amazing. Again, you lay down the base material. It stitches your placement tack down, then this internal stitch, which will always run the same color as the Applique stitch material. That's why there's a stop there. Then it does your satin stitch border. It's amazing. You simply tear it off like tearaway. It's the most incredible thing. It's like I said, it's goof-proof applique making. It's brand new. I'm very, very, very excited about the product line coming out. Okay. Just a couple of other fancy effects that I want to show you. You know what? I neglected to tell you one also with fill stitching. I'm going to go ahead and create a base fill. Not only in fill stitching, not only in fill stitching do you get the different effects, the ability to do embossing, motif, contour, and stippling, but under, it's under, just a second, I've got to scroll over. It's not under my pull push, where are you? I've been working the two softwares. It's under General. Right down here, you do indeed have gradient fills within here. So you have linear increasing, linear decreasing. So I made a base fill, go linear increasing, and click apply. What I'm getting basically now is a very heavy density to a very light density. And what I'm going to do at this point in time, I'm going to select that fill. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to copy. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to paste. I've got two fills now. I'm going to grab the second fill. I'm going to change the color, and then we'll just change it to, it doesn't matter what, I just wanted to change it to orange, I'm going to grab the second fill, just change it to orange with a right-click, and then I'm going to go under General again, and I'm going to say for the second fill, let's do a linear decreasing and click Apply. And you've just done your first blended fill, going from one digressive color down to another. This is great for oranges into yellows or reds into oranges into yellows. You also have and can create some really neat effects by going convex for the first one, grabbing the second one, simply going under General, and going concave, click Apply, and you create a whole nother type of blend. It does have auto blending. You're blending like a master when you're using those. All right. Let's go ahead and talk next about your text and your text designs. I'm sure that most of you are aware. If you're not, you do have a whole series of text designs. I'd like to show you how I utilize the text designs. Now, the first time that you go into your text designs, if you only see 20 or 30 designs as you scroll down through here, you did not load your support files on your master disk. There are some 800, I believe, text designs within the software. So if you go in there and you just see the angels and not much more than that, you did not load your support files. Put your master disk back in and load your support files. You'll get all of the designs. How do I use these to create special effects? My daughter's name is Scarlett. I'm going to use the S. I'm going to select it, move it in position. Then I'm going to grab my text tool. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type the rest of her name, C-A-R-L-E-T-T. Scarlett is a little angel indeed. Type it. I can now place it in position, and you create some really neat designs like that. Other things you can do with those same text designs, because it's more than lettering. Scarlett always says a little monkey, so I'll grab that little monkey, bring it up on the screen. You can size it. I'm going to come in there and place it right there and hang that little monkey from that letter L in her name, and you create some really neat special effects using the text designs and the designs that are in there. One other thing, and it's a little bit of a joke, not really, but I did a class several months ago. Someone bought the software, loved the text designs, came back in the next day crying to me. She said, Walter, my daughter's name is Valerie. You forgot the V. And I said, honey, don't worry, we did indeed forget the V. The way that the designs were loaded, the V was added at the end. All you have to do for the V is scroll down to the bottom of the text design, and there's your little V angel for all of you with children whose name starts with V. All right? So some really neat things you can do. Certainly also with just texting. I'll go ahead and just type up some text here, show you some neat things you can do with the text. Certainly with text, you have complete control of your size. You have control of, let's go ahead and get this to fit. You have your height, certainly, your spacing in between letters, your line spacing for multiple letters. By selecting it and italicizing it, you can italicize the letters at the click of a button. Turn it off, italicize. You can also stair step it. Click Apply, and you'll stair step it. You can also align with multiple lines of text. You can align it left, right, or center alignment. What that simply means, if I come in here and say on the next line, everyone, let's turn it out of stair stepping, and let's align to the center, and click Apply. It's going to welcome everyone and be centered. Again, being selected, I can left align. I can also right align. So you do have some nice choices that you can do there. You also have, let me go ahead and I'm just going to do this to the center. You also have some choices. Let's go ahead. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get rid of this second line of text because I want to show you some of the editing features that you have in here. You basically have two levels of editing in your text for effects. The first level of editing that you have is just with a normal select. With a normal select, you simply get those 4 black squares that have a black box around it. At this point, you can size simply by going to the corner, and you can size in that manner, just pulling, okay? You also have a stretch feature. This allows you to stretch the letters, okay? You have that in the first level. The other feature that you have is rotation. You can rotate your text. Now, to get to the second level of editing, just click on your text tool one more time. Certainly, yellow diamonds are spacing, so you can now space individual letters. The right square, or the orange square, allows you to pull individual letters off the line, and you now have some editing abilities. You can size them. Not a lot of you know that. Let me go ahead and do a couple of undos. Get it back into position. You also have, though, when you go into a normal select, and then click on your text tools, you now have some shaping, excuse me, I meant to come back there, click apply, so I just have the smaller box. You can now stretch. I can stretch one side by holding down the, control key. I can now stretch both sides, moving it up at an angle or down. You have the same ability in the center and on the left. I can stretch in that manner. I can stretch on the top. I can hold down the control key. I can stretch like that also. You also have the ability to do text certainly in a normal, or you can do it in a circle. Circle is for arch lettering. Let's view it to fit. When you're working with arch lettering, your arch is controlled over here with this brown circle. You can tighten your arch. You can soften the arch. I find the stretch tool very, very handy here also. And you can also reverse direction your arch for lettering that you're going to put on the bottom of a design. Let's go ahead and just view it to fit again. And you have bottom arch lettering. And again, everything still applies in the same manner. The stretching, the individual editing, the spacing. Spacing is kind of neat. When you space in this manner, it always justifies the first letter to the last letter. So you see as I move it apart, the E is staying in perfect location to the W over here. Just a point of knowledge about it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about your monogram and some of the monogram designs and abilities that you have. You indeed do have a monogram key. Click on your monogram key. Click anywhere in the active window. You can monogram in Floriani software with every font that's in the software. You have the ability to do your monogramming. So pick anything, you can do a 3-letter monogram. But more than that, we also developed for you 45 different monogram style letters, and they're just numbered 1 through 45 mono 1 through 45. Select one that you like, just click apply, and it will change it up on the screen. You also have with your monogramming, if you scroll down to the bottom, the 13 top monogram styles in the industry. All right? Pick any monogram style. I use this one personally quite often. Go ahead and move it. Now, anytime you're utilizing one of the preset 3-letter monograms, which are signified by a green letter M, as you come down here, this is a little green letter M to the left of it. Anytime that you see that, you do also have decor that you can associate to it. Just pick the decor that you want to border it with, hit apply. It will auto size to whatever size you chose to make that monogram. Now, let me make this clear. With every monogram style that you choose, you have a complete different set of decor that is created to auto-fit that specific monogram style. And there are some beautiful decors. I've been asked, why don't we have the same decors to fit the different or the same monogram? Monograms are shaped differently. They size differently. So we created a monogram decor that basically fits size and sizes perfectly to the size. Now, more than that, okay, whenever you create a monogram, and let's say we don't want to use the decor, we'll just pick a letter style up here. You also have, for monogramming or for bordering, you have a whole other series of monogram designs, and here is your icon right here. Click on it. These are all different monogram borders. The only thing you really need to know about this when you choose one, look, you even have a little embroidery hoop here, click on it, is that they're not sized and they won't auto fit. So you have to move them into position many times. Now, first of all, to get exacting position, see how this little X is center. If you come over to the left margin area, all right, you can actually grab a guideline and put it right through the center of the text, okay, just like that. I can now grab a second guideline. I'm just left clicking and holding it, putting it right through the center. I can now come on, let me select the hoop, get my hand, and I can now move it and get in a very exact position, just moving that little X over, and I can get it to sit perfectly within that. Now, if the size is incorrect, this is how you size them. Come to your corners, just stretch it out or pull it in to create different sizes. You get the size perfectly. The point is that they don't auto-size and auto-shape right to the monogram. you're going to have to move it and correct it just a little bit, but it's not hard at all. And again, you do have a wonderful series of monogram borders. I don't know if we'll be adding more to that, but we've given you a real nice selection. A couple of the other features that you have is you also do have within the software motif shapes. These are all pre-done shapes that you can use with the motif. Great for quilting squares and such. Pick any motif shape, just click on it, up it comes. The motifs will auto-size to it. Select any motif that you want, click apply, it'll auto-size to it. But with the motifs, you can also utilize a single run stitch, a two-ply run stitch. You can also utilize the bean. You've got your motifs. But again, you can go ahead and apply the symbols. If I want to do it with anchors, anchors away, folks. So you've got some real nice functionality. I border lettering with this, and again, when I'm making squares and such, you do have a wonderful array of motif borders. The icon is right there, and you'll see all your motif shapes right there. Everything will auto-fit. Get that first one out of there. Pick any motif, and again, it will auto-size to it. Kat, that's all I got right now. You know what? I got one other thing that I really want to show. The artwork tool. Not all of you realize that within the system, we do have an artwork tool. Not all software has an artwork tool. Now, if you had like a Wacom tablet and you use your pen, you can freehand draw within the software, but you can also create rectangles. You can also create ellipses, By holding down the control key, you'll get perfect circles. You can pull it any direction that you want, create perfect circles. Now, what's kind of neat with these is that they come up as artwork. These are actually vector-based art, okay? What's nice about that is I can now grab it, I can right-click, and I can say, you know what, convert to a complex fill, and boom, it's a fill stitch. Let's change color. Oops, excuse me. Let's just grab another color on the color bar. I am left-clicking instead of right-clicking. I'm going to grab the second piece of art, and let's say convert this one to a steel stitch. I'll get a steel stitch. I can right-click and I can convert to a cross stitch. It'll fill it with cross stitching. I can grab that third one then, and I can say, you know what? Let's convert that to our applique stitch, and boom, there's your applique stitch. Artwork tool is really functional. I use it a lot of times when I have designs where I don't have like perfect circles, and I want to make perfect circles within a design. It's a really, really handy tool. I hope to see in the future that we're going to be able to maybe expand out on that. I've got some things in mind that we might be able to utilize the artwork tool for. And the other thing I guess I should show you is that when working with the symbols, just one other thing, the symbols that you can use for bordering your appliques, also for implanting on your running stitch lines, can also be used to create a nice series of designs. Let's say I want to create a family of butterflies. Click on the butterfly, left click and hold, and just drag. Well, you know what? There's Mama Butterfly. Here's her kids behind her. I don't know if butterflies fly in flocks, but if they did, it would look something like that. I could then come in and do my text, and I can just type in butterflies. Let me change the size just a little bit on here to about 1/2 inch. Apply it, and then again, because I have that ability to grab individual letters, lots of times you can create some really unique designs like this, grabbing each letter and forming some awesome shapes and such. So you know what, folks, not digitizing, these are all effects. Well, certainly it can be incorporated in digitizing, but these are all effects that you have with your stitch types. You can be amazingly creative within the software as it stands right now. We did have a wonderful update that added the applique stitch to it. I hope you're all really happy with that. I hope you all jump out and grab some of that applique stitch material. It is amazing. Kath, I'm almost out of time, but I have saved it to the end to open it up to some questions at the end. So let's finish up with a little question period. I'm sorry I didn't take one in the middle, folks. I thought we'd go through and just do it at the end today.
Okay, well, the question I have is when you do that, when you do a fill and you go in there and you use the contour to fill it with. Is there a way with your control points to offset the center of contour fill? Excuse me. So we have a fill. We fill it with the contour.
I know exactly what you're talking about, Kath.
Thank you, Walter. Apparently
yeah, if I'd have done it with the right stitch type.
Apparently I don't know what I'm asking.
You know what, Kath, a lot of times too, and I've said this right from day one, as fully inundated I am into the software and with every function that it has, some things I haven't tried, so I'm going to go ahead and go in here because I'll tell you the truth, I have not tried to change the center point on there. Let's come in and do a select. It's showing me my center. Let's go into a shape function. Can I move that? No. I do not believe that you can change the starting point on there. Nope, I can move it, but I cannot change the start point. I can just change the effect. I cannot change the start point.
You can change the density,
I will share with you that if I would have come in and utilized my artwork tool in here, creating an ellipse, holding down the control key, and creating a fill like this, and then coming in and converting that to complex fill, selecting it, and then choosing contour, you're going to get a smoother rolling contour. You're going to get a little bit of an off shape, but really when you're looking on that on a one-to-one basis, it's going to look very, very cylindrical, especially when looking like thread, and you really don't see that little misshaping that you have with that. It's fairly complex mathematically, but I like the contour stitch, and again, I'll use it in whirlpool effects. I've used it in waves, and then come in and have broken it into colors and things. It's amazing. You can overlay them and put two like on top of each other and create some real nice blends, meaning I can come in and I can copy, I can come in and paste, I can grab the second one and just apply another color to it. Now, while they're sitting right on top of each other, thread doesn't lay like that. The thread tends to fall off. You know what, I'll just go ahead and slightly move this one over a little bit, and you'll get more of like that type of effect when you make it look 3D. Really pretty neat. So you can get some really neat blending with the contours. Also, just altering the density, you can get some neat blending effects with contours.
Okay, Walter, thank you. And the next question we have, when you do our lettering and you make it arch, the round, if I want to put ladybug in an arch lettering across the top of the ladybug, and on the bottom I want to put book club, do I have to create two separate arches, one to do the top and one to do the reverse bottom? And how would I kind of line those up?
Yeah, absolutely you do, Kath. Let me go ahead and pick a letter style that'll work a little better here, and I'll show you what I do with it. Let me just use, what do we got? We can even do it with that. Ladybug. Let's go ahead and do it with an arch. Let me go ahead and make it a size that's a little easier to see. And let's view it to fit the window. Okay. Let's move it up a little bit. Let's zoom it down a little bit. See how you have that circle that runs right in there? As long as the lettering is basically the same size. What lettering do you want now on the bottom?
Oh, I wanted to say book club. Same lettering, same everything. I want ladybug, book club. And book club will be the reverse.
Yep. Once I have it in that same thing, what I do is I actually will try to get that lettering. I changed the lettering in size. I'm sorry.
But it's the same thing. It's the same difference here.
Yeah, you're just going to really just try to place that in there like that. Once again, you can also, by bringing up the first and the second one, you can get to the exacting center points, line up the first one, then line up the second one utilizing that so you're right in form. But because you have those circles like that, it's pretty darn easy to do that. Also realize I really like and use this stretch feature when I'm doing arch lettering a lot. I use that stretch feature a lot when I'm in there. Get to your second level and go ahead and stretch. You know, many times when you're doing especially small lettering, small A's, R's, E's tend to close. That stretch feature was intended to stretch those small openings open. Always recall the smallest opening you can achieve in embroidery is 0.8 to 1 millimeter. So once you've generated your small lettering, grab your ruler and always measure your opening. Now it's 7 millimeters. My God, I can fall through that opening. But if it's under a millimeter, under 0.8 to 1 millimeter, it's telling me it's too small. It's going to close. The stretch feature was designed to stretch the lettering open. It stretches those opening sizes, and you can take small A's, E's, and R's that aren't going to open and open them up really beautiful with that stretch feature. I use that an enormous amount.
Walter, when you're pulling in the blue lines to set those center points, would
Yes.
you explain that and do that very slowly?
Yes, what you do, and I'll just use the plain screen. You come over to the margin area over here on the left, okay? I left click and hold, and then as I drag onto the screen, I'm still left clicking, okay? I get my guideline. I can pull it right to, you see up on the top, I'm at a 0 point, so I can get right on 0. I can then go to the top margin, and I can do the same thing here, and I can do 0 right there. And they're just wonderful guidelines for merging designs to placing them in different quadrants and such. I utilize those a lot. I also utilize those a lot when I'm making designs endless. Those can be very helpful when I'm choosing start and end points in creating an endless embroidery.
Okay, and we can, so you can pull in, like you've brought one down from vertical and one horizontal, so I could continue adding as many in as I need.
You can bring them down, you can set them. I can offset this one to -20. I can bring another one here to 20. You can grab as many as you want. I've never...
so it makes placement so perfect.
I've never run out. So, I mean, as far as I know, you can grab as many as you want. You can create as many quadrants as you want within here. This can be very, very helpful. Now, let me see, I'm just looking for something here. Okay, there's some other features that are coming out that are going to help with alignment and stuff like that. It wasn't in this last update, but you got some nice updates coming into Suite. I guarantee that.
And one last question.
Those guidelines, they're amazing. They're just amazing.
We're going to be out of time, so we're going to ask one last question. When you bring up your cross stitch, how do you make the fabric show up behind it?
How did I do that? Now realize with the cross stitch, you didn't really mean to do it with the cross stitch, but it's easy enough to do. Pick your cross stitch, make any shape with the cross stitch that you want. Boom, there's your cross stitch. Now, it's under commands, okay? And I had selected one and it defaulted. None certainly is going to pull it out of there. But if I generate my cross stitch and I have nothing behind it, select the cross stitch, okay? Come under commands, and then you can then apply materials behind it if you'd like to see the materials. But realize the base reason why those materials were put in there were for your appliques, because I can come in and do an applique shape. And remember, the difference between applique and applique stitch is with applique stitch you don't have to finish the structure. With applique icon you do. But now again, I can select my applique, I can come under commands, and I can tell it any one of the base materials that we have in there. We do have denim. Let me see what they were. You have kind of a reddish type material. We do have denim, which is number 2. There's number 3, which is a burlap. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. Number 7. There were 9 original materials put in there. And then, of course, we just completed the new applique stitch materials, and those are all located down below that. It says the AS, indicative of applique stitch. We can tell it's silver velvet and apply it. They really, really stitch beautifully. Again, I can't say enough about that applique stitch process and the functionality being in the software now. I hope everyone has found this helpful.
It has been great, Walter, and as usual, we've run out of time before we've run out of joy.
How quickly we run out of time.
It does. It goes so fast.
Well, folks, look, I'd like to thank, once again, I'd like to thank you, Miss Kathy Quinn. You are an amazing moderator and such a dear friend. I love you. I'd like to thank DJ Karen, our entire support staff. We couldn't do it without you folks. And certainly and most of all, I want to thank all of the clients, everyone who owns the embroidery suite. I love you all, folks. Hugs and stitches to you. We'll see you next time. Kath, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Walter.